Now Hear This is a music review podcast and is not directly affiliated with any artists or album projects discussed on the show. Think of us like your record collection come to life. Well, except for your police records. Not the band. The ones from your white-collar drug conviction. We know you got out in a week.
You got a record of your favorite songs. You got an hour and it won't take long. You got a pair of brand new friends. You got a ticket, gonna stick to the end. I said now hear this. Now hear this. Now hear this show right now.
You know, I think that writing songs is an act of love. The creative process, you know, it's goofy and impossible to explain.
I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand, walking through the streets of Soho in the rain. He was looking for the place called Lee Ho Fooks, gonna get a big dish of beef chow mein. Aaaaaaawhooooo, Werewolves of London.
Oh, Ryan, it's such a good one this week.
Oh boy. Oh no, what have I done?
I'm really excited for this one.
I had this cherry in my eye, an apple in my eye long ago when we were talking about this, and I finally decided to pull it out, to whip it out, to throw it at you, to see how you would respond to it. I'm talking about an album, by the way.
Not the splatter on my bubble.
No. The fog has lessened on your bubble, though. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I hope everyone else's bubbles are doing okay. Ryan, yours is looking in tip-top shape.
Thank you. It's a lot of polishing, a lot of worrying goes into it.
Bubble upkeep.
You got to bubble up. So this week, we are talking about Warren Zevon's third studio album, Excitable Boy. And I am an excited boy to discuss it.
This is my first time ever listening to a Warren Zevon album all the way through.
First time. Wow.
I knew the hit. I knew I knew the one on here.
Yeah.
And I had never had a particular aversion to him. We were just talking about Black Sabbath off the call. There's certain artists I've just never quite done the dive into, and this was one of them. And man, I liked this one. This is a good album.
I owe Warren, I'll shout him out, Max Phillips, one of my best friends, if not my best friend. I've known him since I was in second grade, and his dad had this CD in his CD collection.
Yeah.
I still remember looking at the red of the cover, the tint of the Zevon lens. Is this a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he a nerd? Is he a rock and roll? I didn't know what it was. And you put it on, and it was one of these albums that broke the conventions that I had heard in popular music up to that point.
Yeah.
Where we're in the 70s. This thing came out January 18th, 1978. It's an Asylum record. And everybody knows Werewolves of London.
Right.
It's a number 21 top 40 hit. It was on the charts for 6 weeks for Warren.
It's a big song.
Big song.
That's staple of classic rock radio. Everyone's heard this song.
Very funny, very dark, macabre, you could call it. This whole album is that. And I didn't get a lot of this stuff when I was a kid, and I didn't understand just how severe and how beautiful the black humor and the satire are on this album.
Yes.
And despite all that, it remains Zevon's best-selling album of his whole career. And they say critically his best one. That could be argued. It could be the one before. There's some other ones. But, this is the one, and so I'm so glad that you liked it.
Oh, I loved it. You've given me some albums that turned into my favorites. Trouble in Paradise from Randy, Another Green World from Eno. Those are the two, I think, biggest ones that stick out in my mind as the ones that penetrated my taste the most. This one is up there. I really, just from song one, was like, oh, okay, all right. And then by second, third, fourth spins on the record, I was just convinced of his genius, kicking myself for not listening to it up to this point, but also kind of excited that I'm able to find albums in my life like this that are, turning into my favorites that I didn't know were there. The aesthetic, you point out the aesthetic, I wouldn't say that it turned me off to wanting to learn more about him.
Yeah.
But it definitely did confuse me because it is, like you say, there's like a nerdy quality to him, but then that's incongruous with his voice. And it's a little unclear what genre he even wanted to kind of play in. And so,
yes,
I don't know, I found it kind of confusing to the point where I just sort of labeled it a curiosity and moved on in my life as opposed to wanting to know more.
Yeah.
And so just getting to know this record, I don't know if I have a better handle on what he wants his genre to be necessarily.
Yes.
But I appreciate just the his attitude and his humor, and it's very consistent with Randy and with some of these artists that are just kind of sarcastic assholes, but do it in a way that is really lighthearted and enjoyable.
Makes total sense to me. Because he was a complicated guy. Guy from the Midwest, did bands like, I'm sure we all did the band thing. He moved out to LA for some time. He was in New York as a folk singer. He put out this record called Wanted Dead or Alive in 1969. There was a big bomb.
Okay, I was going to ask about that because I didn't know if that one performed at all or not.
It did not perform very well.
I am wanted, dead or alive. I'm wanted everywhere. I've got to survive. You say I am a violent man. I'm only trying to do the best I can. Dig it?
But he ended up in the early 70s touring around with the Everly Brothers, and he ended up just moving to Spain in the summer of 1975 because he was so sick of the music business, and he lived and played in a bar in a small town, and that's where a lot of some of the inspiration for some of these songs.
Yeah.
He turned his sadness and his frustration into humor and anger, and just some of the wryest, pithiest, laconic lyrics I've ever read.
Nick Lowe-ish in that way.
Exactly like Nick Lowe. And so Jackson Browne, I mean, the rumor goes, I don't know if I'm getting my stories right, but like Jackson Browne was like, hey, you gotta come back to the game. We gotta get you back, man. And he produced his self-titled, and that is an unbelievable record as well.
Tell me about your early relationship with Jackson Browne. Was he responsible for getting you a legitimate record deal?
Yes, he was. I had moved far away from Hollywood. I was not having a great deal of success there.
Yeah.
I was living in Spain, and Jackson twisted arms and that sort of thing, and sent me a postcard and suggested that I come home and produce the first album.
Now, what were you doing in Spain exactly?
I was singing country and western songs in an Irish bar.
But he was surrounded, Zevon, at the time with guys like Jackson Browne and Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham, everybody in Fleetwood Mac, and then just all the players of that time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the reason I'm saying that is if you even look at who's on this record, Jackson Browne,
Yeah.
guitar, vocals, McVie, Fleetwood, you got the Gentleman Boys, which is Jackson Browne, Jorge Calderon, Kenny Edwards, J.D. Southern, and Waddy Wachtel, like all of these great session guys and writers.
Yeah.
Linda Ronstadt sings background vocals on Excitable. Linda Ronstadt.
We've been looking for a project to do together for a while.
And there were, 4 or 5 songs on there that became classics?
Classics.
Popular?
4 of them were sung by Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah. Which one were those? It was...
Carmelita, Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me, Mohammed's Radio, and Hasten Down the Lane.
Yeah. Nice work.
I hear mariachi static on my radio, and the tubes, they glow in the dark. And I'm there with her in Ensenada, and I'm hearing Echo Park. Carmelita, hold me tighter, I think I'm sinking down. And strung out on heroin on the outskirts of town.
He's just surrounded by all these people, and he was brought back to LA, he had a success, and then he's working on this album, and this thing explodes.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it. He didn't even really think Werewolves of London was worthy of the record.
Right. I read that. I did read a little bit about that one.
You know, and so that's why I just find this album so entertaining, and for those who know him or don't know him, it's worth a revisit. Definitely go grab this and spin it and come back to this album and enjoy it, because it gets better as I get older, and we'll dive into that with each of the songs.
Yeah, there's a maturity to this one, which we will get into a bit, but you know, this is another one where there's that 9-track album perfection,
right,
that we were talking about last episode. You know, there's only 9 tracks on this one, and that was one
Love
of the notes
it.
I wrote, that yeah, you know, you've got nothing but great stuff on here. I mean, there's some I like more than others, but ultimately it's just the right amount of punch to get you through it. And I think there's some great dynamics on here, and the production is so clean.
Yeah.
Do we know who produced this one? Did you say that, or maybe I missed it?
No, I didn't say that. So it was Jackson Browne and Waddy Wachtel.
Okay.
So Waddy Wachtel is a New York guy. He's born in New York, at least. He worked on Linda Ronstadt, Stevie Nicks, Keith Richards. So that's where you're getting some of these people, but also the Rolling Stones,
Okay.
James Taylor,
Yeah.
Brian Ferry, Andrew Gold. If you know Andrew Gold, wrote the Golden Girls theme song. Thank you for being a friend. So all of this really well done, craftsman-like production and
Yeah.
songwriting. I mean, Jackson Browne, he's the zenith of that, and then this other guy who is behind the scenes doing the same thing. Really good sounding album.
Oh yeah, it's clean. It has a big sound. It's full, but it's also very clean. It's kind of the production I prefer, where
Yes.
there's a containment. You know, there's not a lot of bleed. It doesn't wander too much from its restriction, but it plays within the restrictions in fun ways, and I quite like that. Where do you
Yeah.
land on Jackson Browne? I've mixed feelings, just because I don't know his catalog super well, and I kind of place him in the same spot I place James Taylor, where I sort of like the vibe, but I don't really delve too much.
Yeah. I'm not a fanboy
Yeah.
of Jackson Browne. He has a few songs I love. There's that song Running on Empty.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I like. There's on that album, it's a really good song called The Loadout, which is a tribute to roadies and you know what happens after the band breaks down. And it's a live record, and it goes into this great cover of the song Stay, Stay Just a Little Bit Longer. Really, really cool.
Dr. My Eyes.
Dr. My
the
Eyes
one
is
I
great.
like.
That's
the one I
that's
like.
a great song. You also have Somebody's Baby is the one I was thinking of.
But just to look at that girl with the lights coming up in her eyes. She's got to be somebody's baby. She must be somebody's baby. All the guys on the
I had a roommate, a good friend of mine, Vin Turo, who loved Jackson Browne, put a lot of Jackson Browne songs on playlists for me and things, and yeah, Dr. My Eyes was on there, as well as Running on Empty. Also tracks Jamaica, Say You Will, and These Days.
These days.
They're good. In fact, I saw him live. He made a surprise appearance at the Jenny Lewis show I saw at the Hollywood Palladium, because he and Jenny wrote a song together called Under the Supermoon, which just came out on a compilation album, and it's excellent. It's a really, really good song.
That's great.
And I didn't really know anything about him. He was diagnosed with he's got the corona.
Oh,
Jackson.
no. He does?
He does. Yeah, he does.
I hope he makes it through.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my aside about Jackson Browne.
Didn't sleep a wink that night. I met Jackson on an early flight. We both said goodbye, LA. Under the supermoon. Under the supermoon. Under the supermoon.
It's got that folky thing on it a little, I guess, but not really. I think this album is more hard rocking than I was ready for it to be when I first spun it. There's some balls on this one.
Yeah, big time. Big time balls. Big
old
time
balls.
I also love Warren Zevon just as like a man and a cowboy and a drinker, and just he was really good buddies with David Letterman because they both had that same sick sense of humor. Well, I guess Warren did, and Dave still does, and we can dig into that. But I sent you that video, Warren near the end of his life. It's his last Letterman appearance, and
oh God,
plays Roland from this album. Roland the Headless Thompson gunner, and they're just being very candid and direct about life and death. And Warren says that thing, he just kind of sprinkles it in the first time he says it, but he comes back to it. He goes, "Enjoy every sandwich," because he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and he died quickly, not as fast as they said he was going to, but very somehow gentle but aggressive and intense. Caustic but smart and very wordy, very literate. And that's why I think it's, like you were saying before, there's a parallel between Courtney and Warren. I mean, it might be a bit of a stretch, but they're both very wordy, very hyper articulate in what they have to say. And all the music is really good.
I wasn't, I sent you that in email. I was not prepared emotionally for that interview because they launch right into it. I mean, Letterman asks him point blank out the gate right about the lung cancer, and I didn't know that was what I was walking into. I knew he died around the early 2000s. I knew that, but I didn't because I remembered all the tributes and things, but I didn't know it was lung cancer, and I didn't know that it was because he had a doctor phobia.
20 years didn't go to the doctor.
Here, I guess a couple of months ago, we all learned that your life has changed radically, hasn't it?
You mean you heard about the flu?
Yeah, kind of about the flu.
Yeah. Well, it's true.
How did you learn about it, and what is it, and how have things been since?
What was the order of those questions again?
Entirely up to you. Any way you want to field them.
How did I learn about it?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me say that I might have made a tactical error in not going to a physician for 20 years.
I see, all right.
It was one of those phobias that really didn't pay off. The only person that I ever go to is Dr. Stan. Dr. Stan, the dentist.
Oh, the
Dr.
dentist.
Stan Golden.
So you go to a dentist on a regular basis. You did.
Yeah, and I always said if he can't fix it, I'm screwed.
Went to his dentist, didn't go to the doctor.
Very, very, very fun. He's even laughing about it on Letterman. I had an aversion to doctors for 20 years. You're like, oh man, why didn't you? Ah.
Yeah, he called it, what did he call it? Gross miscalculation on his part.
I know we're laughing. The guy died, but they're laughing too. It's funny.
Yeah, he was very candid about it. It was actually interesting to see what a dying artist looked like and spoke about and was willing to discuss in that context. And definitely that was the first time I think I'd ever seen an interview even with him. Was that this morning?
The last interview, yeah.
Yeah. But it was funny. It was warm, and they were clearly good friends, and you could tell that there were points where Letterman was about to cry, and
Well, David
crazy.
Letterman is not a fan of the sentimental, and he suffers no fools from what I understand, and to see him open up with Warren like that, I enjoy that. That's really why I sent it to you. It's compelling content for that reason. Because Letterman always does that thing after a band plays. If he doesn't like the band, he's to the drummer like, "Are these rentals? These your drums? You rent these drums?"
Is that his tell?
Yeah, that's his tell. He goes, "Did you rent these drums?" Isn't that amazing?
No wonder he womanized all those people. It's a real power move.
I had sex with staff that big New York. I think it was the Post. I don't know if it was the Times. I had sex with staff, and it's just his face up there.
Yeah, just his big letter face.
So what do you say? Are we ready?
Are we ready to lock and load and head over?
Are we in the switching yard, barreling down the tracks towards Bullet
Corner?
Good morning.
I'm going to be your instructor. Okay, I know you're anxious to jump right in.
So for this Paul's Bullet Corner, where I summarize the album in weird poetry, I did something a little different because I was inspired.
Oh no!
I have 3 bullets total, but the first bullet is a series. Okay, here's my series. Okay, the first in the series. 77 years ago, our forefathers brought onto this continent a new nation. Bring lawyers, guns, and money. The shit has hit the fan.
Yes.
We say we are going to the moon and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Bring lawyers, guns, and money. The shit has hit the fan. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. Bring lawyers, guns, and money. The shit has hit the fan. We are fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when we declared with one voice, bring lawyers, guns, and money. The shit has hit the fan. Of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, his was the most human. Bring lawyers, guns, and money. Shit has hit the fan." It's that was it. So and all of that is to say that song is very universally uplifting. Bullet number 2.
Bullet 2.
Tramps like us, baby. We were born from adults like Warren Zevon. So brush your damn teeth and crack open that history textbook.
You know, he was buddies with Bruce.
I believe it.
Okay, with such disdain.
I believe it. I believe it.
I believe it.
The last one here, as my baby wakes up. The Bleeding Gums Murphy of piano rock.
Ooh. Then consider me the Lisa Simpson of this podcast.
And that's my bullet corner.
He did it again. All right.
So should we start up with Johnny striking up the band, eh?
Yes, we shall. Johnny Strikes Up the Band, track 1.
Dry your eyes, my little friend. Let me take you by the hand. Freddie, get ready. Rock steady when Johnny strikes up the band. They'll be rocking in the project, walking down along the strand. Freddie, get ready. Rock steady when Johnny strikes up the band.
Freddie getting ready. Rock steady. Johnny strikes up the band.
At first, it sounds like you're heading like you're going to Bruce Springsteen town, and then that voice comes in, and the voice is the thing that differentiates him from Bruce to me, because there's an authority to it, and it's almost conversational in its quality, but it's not strained with emotion. It's authoritative. It's final. It's cold in a sense, but also warm in ways that don't really hit you until later. It's a very unique rock and roll voice.
Absolutely it is. He was a singular artist. Yeah, I don't think there'll be another Zevon. He just knew. He just knew how to go and hit you right between the eyes. This song, he's talking about Johnny Carson, the Johnny Carson show. And,
are you serious, really?
Yeah, so...
I did not know.
Yeah, Freddie getting ready, rock steady. So that's Zevon referencing Fred DeCordova, Carson's longtime Tonight Show producer. He was the guy Carson always pointed to as his rock, the one who kept him grounded and protected from the NBC brass. But this is Warren's version of, you're saying Bruce Springsteen, his Americana. He's taking us back to a time when people would tune in to the television and watch one show.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing else on TV. And so from the projects, he's talking about New York City, to the Strand Walk of Manhattan Beach, from coast to coast. And that's why I love his attention to the details of the lyrics.
Yeah.
He's just talking about the national popularity of Johnny Carson. It's just a Johnny Carson tribute song. Better than Brian Wilson's Johnny Carson.
No, I like that song.
I mean, I like it too.
That was the one that sprang to mind for me and I was just about to ask you, like, what is it with legendary rock singers and Johnny Carson?
He was just the man. And I guess Johnny Carson was also a professional level drummer.
I didn't know
so
that.
Musicians loved him. Yeah, he was very good on the drums. And
was he ever on Johnny Carson, Zevon?
I actually don't know that. I would love to figure that out, but our no Googling policy prevents me.
I'm not going to Google it. Yeah, somebody write us in. Tell us. Yeah, I don't know how to describe hearing this song for the first time other than to say that it felt strange yet familiar. And there's a delicate, almost restrained quality to his piano, except when he wants to place emphasis somewhere. And that's what I mean by dynamics. He's pointing you in the direction that he wants you to hear. It's not a barrage of noise. It's not everything is the same tone. He is very purposeful with how he's guiding your ear around. And I guess that goes with Jackson Browne's production, stuff like that too. But, it's a sophisticated tune. All of these are sophisticated songs. And there's so much soul in it just because his voice. Is so booming.
His voice is the best part. Really down there. And there's not a better intro song. None of these songs kill in terms of intro like this one does. It just is
so good.
Hits you right in that riff. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Great song.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I guess I know why he's going for that particular type of chord progression. It does sound a little late nighty.
Yeah.
In a sense.
It has that 70s, I don't even know how you describe it, orchestrated.
Yeah.
It's a complex chord progression for sure. Just walking down from the sixth chord, all the different chords and the different... I mean, this isn't a musical theory. You're not here to get lectured on musical theory, folks.
No.
You're here for some laughs and some gaffs and some tracks.
Yes. Laughs, gaffs, and tracks. Another working title.
Oh, no. But yeah, so I mean, that one's a palate cleanser as far as I'm concerned. It's just a great popular live track he did as well. But track 2, whoa.
Jesus.
Roland, the Headless Thompson gunner.
Roland was a warrior from the land of the midnight sun, with a Thompson gun for hire, fighting to be done. The deal was made in Denmark on a dark and stormy day, so he set out for Biafra to join the bloody fray. Through 66 and 7,
a devastatingly sad portrayal of Biafran violence.
Yes.
Again, when I said in my bullet corner that tramps like us were born to the adults that were Warren Zevon, what I meant to say is there's nothing juvenile about this album. It really does come across as an adult telling you about the world, but not in a condescending way, in a comforting but also educational way.
Yeah.
I feel like all these songs is him teaching us a lesson.
Yeah, definitely you're getting taught a lesson. So I mentioned he went to Spain previously. And so this is where he met the co-writer of the song, David Lindell. And so David was running a bar after working as a stint as a mercenary in Africa. Wow. And so Zevon, who, he just loves the darker side of his life, buys into David's story. He's like, well, let's write the song. I want to hear about what's going on. So, I mean, you can listen to the lyrics and you can get it. We'll dive into the lyrics, but I don't want to spend too much time on the song because there's so many. We could go line by line through all these songs, and this could be a 14-hour podcast where you're like,
right. Well, I pulled a stanza out here. I have the eternal Thompson gunner still wandering through the night. Now it's 10 years later, but he still keeps up the fight. In Ireland, in Lebanon, in Palestine, in Berkeley, Patty Hearst, heard of the burst of Roland's Thompson gun and bought it. I mean, I think what he's doing there is relating it to every other horrible conflict that came to mind. You know?
Yeah, those are all the things that were going on at the time. So Palestine, that's the Middle East, everything that's been going on there. Ireland, just we could
IRA.
Right. It's not a history podcast. You can look all these horrible war stories, but that's Warren tying it. So basically the story is Roland is the best gunner that this group of people have. And that fucking Van Owen, man, he gets orders to take him out. And so blows his head. And so, I mean, obviously Roland, he's not going to, his head is gone, but he hunts Van Owen down.
Jesus.
And he takes his revenge, but he's unable to die, I guess. And so he wanders through all of the remaining wars and problems through history, just haunting people and blowing stuff up. It's such a great image. It's so cool, man.
So it's funny. There's a comic book, an old DC comic book called The Haunted Tank, which is a very similar thing. It's about a Civil War general who does that. The structure of this song I find very interesting. It starts with a dread, kind of a minor chord, and then the middle bits sort of raise up into a more of a major key, and then we're back in sad territory. It echoes the main character, who I assume is a youth who's kind of scared to go to war, then briefly thrilled by it, and then destroyed by it. It's a smart construction to the narrative, and the song echoes that. Right.
Really cool. I'd like to point out, so I didn't even know this until I was researching for the podcast. Roland, the Headless, so he's the Headless one, but a Thompson gun, it's a machine gun, a submachine gun. It's a brand of gun. Yeah, Tommy gun. I didn't know that. And so that's, again, Warren's attention to lyrics. Like, oh, he's talking about a Tommy gun. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's just such a cool song. And it was the last one he played on Letterman. It was Letterman's, supposed, you never really know these things, was his favorite Warren song. And just great. Dark, severe. Track 2, you're like, oh, Johnny strikes up the band. Now I'm being haunted by a headless mercenary seeking revenge. Oh, and he's a ghost.
I was going to point out, this is that conflict. I think is this the Nigeria-Biafra conflict?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons John Lennon stated for returning his MBE to the British government.
Johnny boy.
Yeah, it was for the Nigeria-Biafra thing, I think, as John put it. And for Cold Turkey slipping down the charts. Anyway.
Yeah, yes. Anyway, there was one more line, and then just one last thing we can go on. The attention to detail where he's saying, Roland aimed his Thompson gun. His head's gone at this stage. You're in verse 3. Roland aimed his Thompson gun. He didn't say a word. Well, he couldn't because he didn't have a head. But he says it anyway. And it's the dry sense of humor. I missed it until I'm sitting here reading it. It's like, wait, why would you even say that? Why are you pointing that out? I guess that's the humor in it, where I find a lot of this stuff very funny. But yeah. Track 3, though.
The title track, Excitable Boy.
I'm still ramping up on the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Well, he went down to dinner in his Sunday best. Excitable boy, they all said. And he rubbed the pot roast all over his chest. Excitable boy, they all said. Well, he's just an excitable boy. He took in the 4 a.m. show at the Clark. Excitable boy, they all said. And he bit the usherette's leg in the dark. Excitable boy, they all said. Well, he's just an
This song, I don't know if this song, the next song, or the last song on the album are my favorite, but they all touch the same part of my brain and heart. Where,
yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, look, I didn't come up with this, folks, but this is a song about a man, an excitable boy, right? So it's a play on these tropes of oh, he's just an excitable boy, you know. Oh, he's rough.
Right.
They're fighting in the house, so he broke his leg.
Boys will be boys.
This guy ends up taking a girl to prom, doing some bad stuff, killing her, bringing her home.
Yeah.
He gets locked away, and when he gets out, he builds a cage out of her bones.
Yeah.
Very nice. This album, by the way, is terrific, and congratulations on your success. Tell me about Excitable Boy. Is there any truth to the story that this is in some way autobiographical?
The culinary part of the song.
The culinary part.
Yeah.
You actually rubbed a pot roast all over your chest.
Well, yes, I did.
Now, why exactly?
Well, remember, there's an expression, isn't there? Rub it on your chest. I don't know, it came through my mind. I felt enthusiastic, and I wanted to express my appreciation for this. And this fine cooking.
Just slopped it right on?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
The pot roast or the smearing
No,
part?
the actual part of rubbing it on your chest.
You know what this one reminded me of was that Randy song. Was it Mikey's Place? Or it was the song on Trouble in Paradise where he's talking about...
Oh, there's a party at my house, or there's a party at my house tonight.
Yeah. This one reminded me a lot of that because I...
Get the rope!
It's kind of a... Yeah, right. That's the one. So it's sort of bouncy and stuff, and then you listen closely to the lyrics and you're like, what?
Yeah, this isn't, I mean, they say all art is autobiographical, and yes, he did rub a pot roast all over his chest at a dinner, which is a lot of where the inspiration of the song came, but he just kept heightening it. But is there a better punchline for a joke than a yakety yak sax against these lyrics?
Yeah, it's jangly. It's a jangly little song, and there's the sax and the oohs, the ooh, excitable boy. I don't know. It's funny and happy and terrifying and awful and all that stuff, and sarcastic in the way that, you know, again, struck that Randy chord in me. But
Right.
I appreciated the humor about it, even though it's a dark subject matter.
Good humor, but also just great music. Good chord progression, good melody. Could this have been a hit song if it wasn't about the horrible things it's about? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, you sent me that video of him performing it live, and that struck me too, just how animated of a performer he is live. When they say in the song that he threw water on his back or whatever, he actually takes water and throws it on his back and stands up and stuff. It's great.
So live, instead of saying he rubs a pot roast over his chest, he throws water all over himself, and he throws the water, and he's just a maniac. He's like a werewolf.
Yeah.
He actually is a werewolf, like live. So get this, and then we'll go on to the next track. 5 singles off of this album.
Wow.
Single 1, Johnny Strikes Up the Band.
9 tracks.
9 tracks, 5 singles. This is how I prefer albums to be. Bring your heat. But really, you limit my time with this thing. Johnny Strikes Up the Band 1. Excitable Boy was the second single. Neither of these really connected until track 4, Werewolves of London.
So good.
Werewolves of London. Werewolves of London. Well, I saw Lon Chaney walking with the Queen, doing the Werewolves of London. I saw Lon Chaney Jr. walking with the Queen, doing the Werewolves of London. I saw a werewolf drinking a pina colada at Trader Vic's. And his hair was perfect.
I mean, this one is a classic. Like, everyone on planet Earth knows this song.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yeah, so what is there to say? How do you feel about this one?
I think I literally wrote what can be said about this. Like, it's a top song of mine, but like when you hear it on classic rock radio, there's an expectation about it, you know, like any of these big hits from the 70s or 60s or 80s or something like that. But it's so captivating. I find it funny, but at the same time, I also find it as timeless as like blue suede shoes.
Yeah,
You know, there's
sure.
a simple quality to it. I could see Elvis Presley covering this song, or Little Richard, or Weird Al Yankovic. Like, I could see any one of them covering it in a different way and doing it with a similar justice, just in through a different lens.
Right.
You know, it's really, really good.
Yeah, so I agree. So quickly, the song began as a joke by Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers.
I've read this. Yes,
75. So it's 2 years before they started recording. 75, 3 years before it was released. Everly was watching a broadcast of a 1935 film called Werewolf of London. He suggested it to Zevon. He's like, oh, you should take this for a song and even a dance craze. And Zevon's like, I don't know. But they wrote it in 15 minutes. Zevon and a couple other guys. A few songwriters. Oh, those royalties, those guys. How lucky are those guys? Best 15 minutes of their lives spending that time.
First thought, best thought?
Right. And so Warren wasn't taking it seriously. Jackson Brown's like, oh, I love this. And he started playing it.
Yeah.
And that's when Warren was like, oh, no, this is my song. I think I want this song. And I mean, the rest, as they say, is history.
I'm very fond of Werewolves of London. I've never minded doing it every night. And I've always thought it was a little haughty of people who wouldn't do their old hits for the crowd, for the customers. But I've also said that had I not had that hit, I would have been regarded as a very successful folk singer.
But apparently it was a difficult song to get down in the studio. They tried a lot of different configurations and tempos and things. And what I find most interesting is it's basically just Fleetwood Mac and Warren Zevon and the producer.
Yeah.
So very funny from Dreams to Werewolves of London.
I mean, Fleetwood Mac at the height of their powers too. I mean, this is
totally at the height.
This is at the zenith of them. It's funny. I just I bought a copy of Rumors on vinyl just because I never owned it on a vinyl record before.
Yes.
When that band was on, they were on.
They were tight. It's really about Mick Fleetwood. What a drummer. But I think we can move on from this. But I think the only thing I may want to address is all the Lon Chaney stuff. Is how brilliant it is. So Lon Chaney,
Walking with the Queen. Yeah, tell me. I don't know any of the background of that.
Here's what I understand. Obviously, I'm just a guy with a podcast. I'm a professor of. I don't have a degree in any of this shit.
What's that? The when David Wallace is talking to Michael Scott, is like, Michael, who told you that? And he goes, it was my understanding.
It was my understanding. It's to my understanding. So Lon Chaney Sr. released in 1927 a silent horror film by MGM starring Lon Chaney, and I guess no copies of this exist. And he wasn't even he played a vampire, not a werewolf. And you're like, okay, well this doesn't really make sense. But then when you get to the whole Lon Chaney Jr. thing, this is
right.
He played the Wolfman in many movies. The Wolfman in 1941. And you can look these up, but when you look at a picture of what he looks like, it's that classic 40s or 50s Wolfman.
Yeah.
And
right.
And so Zevon, just being the brilliant guy he probably either looked it up or knew. He's like, Lon Chaney Jr. also did this, and this is great for this last verse. And but the Trader Vic's line is a bar in London. It looks like a California style bar if you look at a picture of it. And I guess by the end of this verse, the hair was perfect line. The audience every time just sang it back to him. And his hair was perfect.
It's a great line. It's so funny, Really, really good. I love that and the beef chow mein. Every time I'm looking at a Chinese menu, I think of Werewolves of London every single time. Trying to get a big dish,
Can I get a big dish of beef chow mein? Get the fuck out of here.
I'm more of a beef chow fun guy, I found out, but I just appreciate the fact that, beef chow mein got such a big shout out.
Big shout out from Lee Ho Fook. Apparently that's a real place too, but anyway. Track
5, Accidentally a Martyr. I listened to this song once and was singing along to it.
Great song.
The phone don't ring. No. And there's sun refused to shine. Never thought I'd have to pay so dearly for what was already mine. For such a long, long time, we made mad love, shadow love, random love, and abandoned love. Accidentally, like a martyr. The hurt gets worse and the heart gets harder. We made mad love.
How do you accidentally become a martyr? I guess maybe that's the whole point.
I mean, that's what I love about it. I mean, a martyr is someone who dies for a cause and becomes bigger in their death than they were in life. So there's a... Actually, he's talking about martyrs as if they're pathetic here. He's talking about how you should pity a martyr and not hold a martyr up. And,
right.
And he's doing it with the backdrop of a love song.
Classic Zevon.
And there's another Brucey, like this is another one that I got Springsteen quality, but again, more mature than Bruce. If Bruce is the teenager, Warren is the late 30s divorcee, telling him how it really is.
The grizzled, yeah. Come here, young man.
Yeah, Bruce is romanticizing everything, putting everything on a pedestal, and Warren's throwing cold water all over all of his teenage zeal, you know. I love the double time piano and the weepy slide guitar and the descending verse. Just gorgeous songwriting, just gorgeous everything. One thing I wanted to ask you about, he name checks Time Out of Mind, which was funny because I didn't know what the hell that was, and so I looked it up, and it was apparently a movie.
Yeah,
it was a movie and also a book, and also later a Dylan album. So that's where I knew it from. I knew Bob Dylan named an album Time Out of Mind, and it's also a track off of a Steely Dan album called Gaucho, which
I know that album.
Yeah, I know that album too. So yeah, it's a common used phrase, but it jumped out to me, the Time Out of Mind thing.
Well, yeah, I guess I looked that up too while we were researching. You're talking about the one from the 40s.
Yeah. Right,
and so the premise of that is, I guess, a son of a wealthy family decides he's going to go pursue a career in music. So maybe that's what this tune's about. Especially that line, never thought I'd have to pay so dearly for what was already mine.
Right. Yes, and that's your music. The music is yours, but the career is the thing you have to pay for.
Yeah.
I also love the line, the hurt gets worse and the heart gets harder. It just, so devastating, man. It's great.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Apparently, though, it's a song about divorce, but it could be about a lot of things. I think his struggle in the music business, it has a lot of, how do I want to phrase this? The tendrils of that snake themselves around a lot of the lyrical themes of his albums, especially after this. But yeah, really nice song.
Yeah.
I mean, after the first 4 songs, it's a welcome sort of brings you down a bit.
If it was track 1, I would have been turned off. But like, we were talking about with the Courtney Barnett album, it's placed at the right spot to make you primed and ready to give it a shot. Really beautiful. Maybe my favorite on the album, I think.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. So this song, the next song, Nighttime in the Switching Yard, this is the only sort of sour spot on the record for me where...
Oh, give me that funk, baby.
Oh, you like it. You like this one.
Oh, I love it. You know why I love it?
Why is that?
It reminds me of Shakedown Street by the Grateful Dead.
Oh.
And it reminded me of Shakedown Street to the point where I had to check which came out first, and Warren beat Shakedown Street to the punch.
Wow.
Warren released this one in January 78, and Shakedown Street came out in November 78. So it was very close. It was in the same year, to the point where I think the Grateful Dead must have been copying it to a point. But I have a real soft spot for like disco, and so this kind of gave me that, kind of scratched that disco itch.
in the switching yard. Nighttime in the switching yard.
I have no disco allergy. I want to just make it clear that it's not about that. There's no story. That's where I go.
No. Yeah, it's just a group.
It's just we're dancing in the switching yard and trains are whizzing by. Okay, maybe, I guess, now that I said it out loud, maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah, I called it seasoned disco. Like, there's still a sophistication to it. It's like what McCartney does when McCartney does disco. There's still an undercurrent of, you know, that 60s crowd building the songs right. But yeah, I don't know. I liked that it picked me up after the last track. And I think I just really came back to the production. It is that
very,
crisp.
very good production, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. That quadruple time bass chugging to echo see that train, that midnight train runs both ways bit, like it's so, ugh.
You're selling me on the song, Paul. Making me like a thing I don't like it more. Cool.
Another good one.
Another great one. See, I was just burning right along here. Got 3 more. Veracruz. So this another, we're back to what he was doing before. Heavy set of lyrics.
I heard Woodrow Wilson's guns. I heard Maria crying. Late last night I heard the news that Veracruz was dying. Veracruz was dying.
It's this, I don't know, what would you call this? Like a acoustic rock ballad, but it has a Mexican sort of flair to it. I don't know. What do you think?
Of this song, of the bunch, this is the one that I like the least. I do love a good Woodrow Wilson reference.
Who doesn't?
That's that's the closest thing New Jersey's ever going to come to a president. Now, I do hear he's a raging racist, so that's not great. But he was president of Princeton University, and you know what? New Jersey needs something.
They definitely do.
So I guess this song dramatizes the American occupation of Veracruz, which was a Mexican territory during the Mexican Revolution of 1914. It's sort of sad, and the historical story is, again, sad. It reminded me of Roland, the Headless Thompson gunner, but I liked it less than that song. Fine. It reminded me, actually, of Hurricane a little bit from Dylan, where he's sort of just recounting a story, and that's when I like Dylan the least, when he's just doing sort of historical fiction and folk tunes. But yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
So the bridge where the Spanish is spoken, I found a translation of it. He's saying, "That day I swore, towards the port I will return. Although destiny changed my life, in Veracruz I will die. That day I swore." So he's painting a lot of his music is cinematic. There's a few other tracks where I feel like I'm in Hollywood when I'm listening to this stuff. And I will admit I don't go back to this one as often as I'd like. But I'm not turning it off if I'm playing it on vinyl. You just let it cruise right through. Veracruz right through.
That one's for free, everybody.
Tenderness on the Block. This is where, so now the album is picking right back up, ramping right back up. This is a Jackson Browne co-write.
Mama, where's your pretty little girl tonight? Trying to run before she can walk. That's right. She's growing up. She has a young man waiting. She's growing up. She has a young man waiting.
Did you pick up the story on this one at all?
So, I think it's about a parent of a pining teenager who is trying to go out, sort of a cat's in the cradle sentiment, but maybe with a daughter, and from the parent's perspective. At least that's the vibe I got, because when I was listening to it, it was giving me big Bruce vibes again.
Yeah.
That song Bruce's Growing Up, it reminded me of that, but from a flipped perspective. There's that line, well, it's the chorus, wide eyes, she'll be streetwise, to the lies and the jive talk, but she'll find true love.
Tenderness on the block.
You know what? To me, what that said was, that's a parent saying that this child is going to go through some nonsense finding her way, but she'll find her way eventually.
Yeah.
And there's a hope to the notion that you have to kind of let nature take its course, but also protect her as much as you can, but let nature take its course, in a sense.
Totally, right.
Yeah.
So you say all that. So I guess Zevon, they wrote this song. Zevon got drunk
Motherfucker.
and pulled the banister off of his staircase.
No.
And so his wife, Crystal, called Jackson Brown. And so this is a Jackson Brown quote. He's like, by the time I got back there to his house, all was calm, and he didn't remember pulling the banister off the staircase. So we just sat down to work on this song, and we obviously didn't stop drinking because I wound up drinking enough to pass out and fall asleep. But when I woke up, the song was finished.
Wow. Did they have kids?
I don't know if Warren and Crystal had kids. I'd have to look that up, but
I don't know. Wow, man, that's... I really got a parental vibe from this
You're
one.
probably not wrong, Paul. I'm just saying he was blackout drunk when he wrote it. Which is why I love Warren Zevon.
I really didn't know he was such a wild man.
Oh, he's a wild, wild man.
It's good.
But that's why you look at the cover and you're like, is this guy just like a nerd?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to listen to this. When you dig in, you're like, oh, no, this is... This is rock and roll. It's wild Randy Newman style stuff.
It really is, yeah.
So speaking of on that exact same theme, here we are. Whew, last track.
What a finale. Oh.
Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
I went home with a waitress, the way I always do. How was I to know she was with the Russians too?
Grabs you out the gate. Anthemic.
I was gambling in Havana. I took a little risk. Send lawyers, guns, and money. Dad, get me out of this. Ha!
I don't know whether to take this as a compliment or as a criticism. I posted this on my Instagram not too long ago, and a friend responded back like, wow, this is Ryan Brady as a song. I was like, what? This is a song about a spoiled, rich, drunken asshole. Oh, okay, fair enough.
Well, I did get vibes of your music and Warren's vibes. I wasn't following the story of this song and equating it to yours or anything, but, I could see some of his aesthetic in yours, or at least maybe what you like about his aesthetic. I get it.
I love songs that you're immediately in the action. I went home with the waitress the way I always do.
That's the line I wrote down.
How was I to know she was with the Russians too? Ha! Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da.
Boy, again, balls on this song. Real balls going on.
And the way he's like, I'm hiding in Honduras. I'm a desperate man.
You sent me a performance of him doing this on Letterman, and that was great. I like seeing him on guitar instead of piano.
Yeah.
The 80s fashion in his band is sort of unfortunate.
It's wild, yeah.
What appears to be New York Giants pajamas, and Warren Zevon's wearing this oversized jacket, like suit jacket, that looks like 4 sizes too big for him.
Yes.
I just love that this song is about a guy who keeps finding himself in tricky situations, but we're to understand that he enjoys the tricky situations.
Yeah, he enjoys
loves the trouble, and loves being cheeky to authority. I love that.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I barely research the song because I'm like, nah, this song, just leave it alone. It's so good. Let it stand there.
The guitar, oh my God, that screeching guitar at the end. And I also wrote some tasteful hand claps.
Amazing. The only thing I did pull is there's just a bit. Zevon has a story about how he wrote this song. So he said, he was in Cuba with his manager and they were in a taxi. And as they rode along, the driver said, I got to make a quick stop. And he pulled into a house, and after a few minutes later comes running out with his sister, who had apparently been kidnapped, right?
Oh my God.
So they jumped in the front seat of the taxi and took off while being chased by the kidnappers. And from the back seat, Warren's manager deadpanned, call my dad and tell him to send some lawyers. And Warren replied, also deadpanned, yeah, and some guns and some money. And I guess there was a moment in that story and where they're like, oh yeah, we got to write this. So
excellent.
That's it.
Excellent.
Excitable Boy. We made it through another episode and an album. Why am I an old Jewish man now? What's going on? I'm Woody Allen. I'm old Woody Allen over here.
Well, I would just like to say in summary that I find his perspective oddly comforting. The authoritative nature of it is relatable. He strikes me as a mentor that I don't know and never knew and was dead long before I perceived any music beyond Werewolves of London, but just really enjoyed it, Ryan. Thank you.
Well, you are very, very welcome. And thank you to all who listened. And we will see you next time.
Yeah, you've now heard that.
Do you have an opinion about the album we discussed today? Contact us at @NowHearThisPodcast on Instagram, @NowHearThisPod on Twitter, facebook.com/NowHearThisPodcast, or email us at nowhearthisofficial@gmail.com. See you next time.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even talk about the Warren Zevon yelps where he's like, huh, ha, yeah, yeah.
They're better than Bruce's.
Oh, they're so good. And some of them are just like,
Good stuff.
Really good. All right. Well, we did it.